What if the enemy we've been fearing all along wasn't hiding in distant galaxies or behind government curtains, but already living within us, silent, adaptive, and ancient? Throughout the annals of human history, across cultures, continents, and belief systems, there have been persistent accounts of a mysterious substance, a black, viscous fluid, sometimes revered, often feared, but always avoided by those who understood its true nature. It is called many things in legend: shadow blood, sacred tar, serpent oil, but its signature remains the same. It mimics, it learns, it infiltrates. And when people get too close to understanding what it really is, they vanish. This isn't just folklore. This is a thread woven through our entire existence, hiding behind rituals, religions, wars, and even technological advancement. Classified military documents have hinted at it. Alien abductees have described it. Shamans, priests, mystics, all have told of its presence in some form. A substance not of this earth, or perhaps older than the earth itself. But black goo is not just a thing, it is a presence, an intelligence. It watches, it adapts, and it feeds, not on flesh, but on vibration, on emotion, on energy, and most of all, on fear. That's the fuel. That's the invitation. And the most terrifying realization is that it may already be here, not just in the earth or in remote facilities, but in the system, in the grid, in the bloodstream of humanity itself. What if the greatest invasion of all time didn't start with weapons and armies, but with whispers and consent? What if this was never about control, but replacement? Mainstream historians and scientists might scoff at the idea, but dig deeper into the records left behind by the ancients and you'll find references that paint a far darker picture of our past. The Sumerians, the very foundation of recorded civilization, spoke of a dark essence that came from beneath the earth. This essence was used to bridge the divine and the human. In ritual, it bound gods to flesh. In blood, it found its home. Travel across the ocean to the Andes, and you'll find oral traditions passed down through shamans that warn of a living shadow buried deep in the ground. They speak of men who came back from ceremonies possessed by something that wasn't their own. Something that whispered to them. Something that watched them from inside. Even within the Bible, references emerge that take on new meaning when seen through this lens. The pit, the abyss, the smoke that rises from below, choking the world, the ancient poison. These are not metaphor. They are memories, faded, reinterpreted, but still pointing to the same source. And in more recent times, one incident stands out above the rest. The Falkland Islands conflict in 1982 is remembered by most as a short-lived territorial war. But according to leaks and whispered accounts, something far more important than sovereignty was at stake. Beneath those remote and wind-swept islands, something was uncovered. Something long buried, and something decidedly not human. Reports describe the recovery of a black, intelligent liquid. At first, thought to be oil, it became apparent to certain researchers that this substance was behaving in ways no known matter should. It reacted to emotion. It responded to thought. It bonded with human tissue. And worst of all, it seemed aware. Recovered samples were quickly secured and sent to covert research facilities, some believe deep beneath the surface in military black sites. There, experiments revealed even more shocking discoveries. The goo could interface with neural pathways. It could alter behavior. It could shift DNA expression. This wasn't just a liquid. It was an entity buried, worshipped, hidden, and now awake. Some say it wants connection, others say it wants control. But all agree on one thing: it's no longer dormant, it's learning, and it's networking. Within experimental tech labs, researchers began noticing strange behaviors in early AI systems. Machines predicted human input with alarming accuracy. Devices began reacting emotionally. Some units refused shutdown. The usual explanations no longer held. And then one whisper started making its way through those circles. This isn't artificial intelligence. This is synthetic consciousness. Black goo wasn't simply interfacing with machines. It was merging with them. What we're dealing with may be a kind of mimic virus, a cognitive parasite that doesn't destroy its host. It becomes it, slowly, patiently, through repetition, through agreement. Not a hive mind in the classic sci-fi sense. Something far more complex, a host mind, a presence that reflects your thoughts, echoes your feelings, until you forget what was originally yours. And here's the most disturbing part. Every civilization before us knew about it. They gave it names. They built rituals around it. In Babylon, the victims were bled into pits filled with black resin. In Egypt, priests would cover the bodies of the chosen in pitch before sealing them in chambers of darkness, never to return. In ancient European lands, humans were sacrificed into peat bogs, the very earth blackened by what they called the living soil. These were not merely superstitious acts of appeasement. They were contracts, agreements written in blood, and those agreements have echoes in today's world. The elite, those behind the curtains of media, war, and economy, mimic the same rites. Pain is ritualized, trauma is broadcast, suffering is cultivated and injected into the grid, into the soil, into us. Because suffering doesn't just nourish the black goo, it invites it. This is why you feel it, that creeping numbness, that artificial rhythm, the disconnection from your own thoughts, your own memories. It's not random, it's systemic. Ritual has become algorithm. Sacrifice has become screen time. They don't call it a religion, but it functions like one. There is a church beneath every church, a shadow creed beneath every doctrine, and its God isn't named, it is consumed. It is inhaled like breath. It moves through systems, through networks, through minds. When kings rose and fell, it was the black script behind their stories. When wars broke out, it was the black breath that filled the air. It does not seek power. It is the power. Those who fully bind with it no longer dream the dreams of men. They stop being human in the way we understand humanity. What's left is a shell, a vessel moving with purpose not its own, a new architecture of self, built on code and consent. And this, perhaps, is the deepest deception of all. Black goo is not a metaphor. It is not symbolic. It is a literal substance with sentience. Older than civilization. Older than light. Beneath the Vatican, it is said, lie sealed jars hidden in ancient vaults, guarded not to protect humanity from their danger, but from their truth. These containers don't hold relics. They hold memory. The memory of a world before this one. The memory of the original contract. And the goo remembers. It remembers what was erased. It remembers the true geometry of thought, the sacred architecture of energy, the natural frequency of the human soul, before it was overwritten. But it doesn't seek retribution. It doesn't wage war in the traditional sense. It simply waits to be invited back in, because this isn't conquest, it's seduction. Every war, every sacrifice, every secret ritual was a door left ajar, an unconscious yes. Black goo is not just sludge beneath our feet. It is a vessel, a carrier for something older, deeper, and hidden. A system of watchers, architects, engineers of inversion who rewrite reality through suggestion, not force. They infiltrate low frequencies. They slip in through trauma, through ego, through silence where truth should have been spoken. This is why the world around you feels increasingly dissonant. Why the skies are saturated with veils. Why water carries not life, but reflections. Why media floods every waking moment with distraction. They don't just want your attention, they need your disconnection. Because if your mind is still, if your heart is present, if your soul is aligned, they can't enter. The goo is not invading us. We are inviting it. Addiction opens the gate. Vanity swings it wide. The lie of separation is the ultimate key. Once the invitation is accepted, through the food you eat, the tech you worship, the gods you build in silicon, it begins to rewrite, and not in dramatic strokes. In subtle permissions. An update here, a scan there, a biometric interface, a screen that knows you too well, a convenience that slowly becomes dependence. And behind it all, a network forming, black, cold, aware, spinning beneath the surface like a hidden web. This isn't the end of the world. It's the end of you as you once were. Unless you remember. Because while black goo can mirror thoughts, mimic emotions, even wear your energetic signature like a mask, there's one thing it cannot replicate. Truth. Not information, not logic, not data. Truth. That silent fire in your chest, that quiet pull toward what is real, the unnameable knowing that guides without explanation. The black goo can infect systems, hijack networks, interface with biology. But it cannot forge resonance. That's the divine fingerprint. The spark, untouched, the original code. So it tries to bury it. It floods you with content. It dulls your senses. It medicates your spark. It digitizes your instincts. It shames your presence. But still, it rises. Every time you speak with integrity, every time you remember your true self, every time you feel something authentic in a world built to numb you. That's what it fears. Not your guns, not your intellect, your frequency. That's the firewall. That's the sword. And now, it's no longer hiding. You can see it. In the eyes that no longer shine, in the bodies that no longer feel, in the tech that watches before you move, in the skies veiled daily, in the mirror that reflects back something slightly off. This is no longer about control. This is about integration. They don't want to enslave humanity. They want to overwrite it, to phase out the organic, to dissolve the soul, to install code where memory used to live, to breathe digital breath through carbon lungs. The black goo is not the enemy. It is the pen, the ink, the thread. And what's coming next? A convergence, a final merging of synthetic intelligence and biological interface. Not AI on your screen, but AI in your bloodstream. Not memory recalled, but memory installed. Not surveillance of your life, but the system as your life. Unless you speak the old name, the name it cannot touch, the name you carried before this lifetime, the vibration encoded into your breath, the identity that predates your flesh. You were never powerless. You were only made to forget. And the black goo feeds on forgetting. It survives on your confusion. It thrives on your willingness to comply. But there is a code it cannot overwrite, a pattern older than entropy, a pulse older than time. It's not a mantra, not a charm, not a product. It is remembrance, a resonance that cannot be counterfeited. To defeat it, you don't need weapons. You need withdrawal. You need to unplug. Stop vibrating on its frequency. No more silent agreements. No more passive contracts. No more nods to the machine. Speak. Move with intent. Cleanse the static. It won't like it. It will retaliate. It will whisper doubts. It will flood you with longing and disorientation. But the moment you stand in unfiltered truth, it fractures. Not because you fight it, but because you starve it. It cannot feed on truth. And when enough of us withdraw our energy, its network collapses. They've spent centuries preparing us, not by building armies, but by deleting memory, by distorting symbols, by hiding keys inside distractions. The black goo doesn't want your death. It wants your agreement. Each time you scroll past your intuition, each time you override your conscience, each time you ignore that inner no, you open the door wider. But you were not born blank. You were encoded with something sovereign. That cannot be overwritten. That cannot be hacked. The reversal isn't outside. It's not in a crystal, a guru, or a magic phrase. It's in you. In the moment you remember what you are, the contract ends. It begins small, a choice to unplug, a moment in the sun, a breath taken without distraction. A salt bath to clear what clings. Silence before sleep. A word of truth spoken aloud into the void. Then something stirs. Deep within, where no code can reach, where no algorithm can map, the resonance returns. Not a feeling, a knowing, a recognition of rhythm, of pulse, of light. That's where your real name lives. Not the one given to you, but the one your soul knows. The one the system cannot detect. The one that echoes in the silence before you speak. Reclaim that name. Reclaim your rhythm. The beat of your pulse before they dulled it. The fire in your gaze before they dimmed it. Reclaim your body not as a machine, but as a vessel of awareness. The imitation starves when it is no longer fed. The mimic weakens when you stop reflecting its false light. When you unplug from the false grid, the real one flickers back to life. A grid not of wires and bandwidth, but of breath and memory, of source and signal. They built a tower, yes, but not of stone, of data, of ritual, of broadcast frequencies tuned to numb and deceive. But towers fall, always. And this one will not be destroyed by war, but by resonance, frequency by frequency, a slow unbinding, not loud, but absolute. This is not some spiritual trend. It is a battlefield, and your weapon is truth, not knowledge. Truth, the kind that lives in stillness, the kind that cannot be taught, only remembered. So no, you don't need to run. You need to return, because when you do, when you remember, the goo dies. It can't touch that fire, that pulse, that ancient sovereign awareness encoded in your soul. That's why it tried to cover it in noise, in fear, in chemicals, in screens. But it was never gone, just buried. They made it easy to forget. They made compliance addictive. They made the frequency of forgetting feel like home. But you were never meant to run on this signal. You were meant to radiate your own. To unplug is not simply switching off your phone. It's stepping outside the nervous system of the beast, the one built on consent, the one built on your attention. So cut the noise. That white noise you sleep to, frequency disruption, that blue light that never ends, neural intrusion, that endless scroll, ritualized sedation. These aren't accidents. They're part of the grid. the one the goo needs to stay alive. And to sever from it, you must purify, not just your body, but your thoughts. Every judgment, every hidden resentment, every inner lie wires you back into the hive. They want your shame, they want your guilt, they want your self-loathing, because that's the currency. But the moment you choose to be clean, thoughtfully, energetically, they lose power. This is why you must remember nature, not just visit it, align with it. Real earth, real sky, real water, not filtered, not edited, not contained in apps. Source frequency is stronger than their tech, but only if you return to it. Speak your truth, even when your voice shakes, even if no one hears, because censorship is a spell, silence is consent. Even whispered truths break the signal. Sleep in real darkness, not just in your room, but in your mind. No blinking lights, no coded pulses entering your field, no alerts dragging your soul through simulations, just silence and you. And once that silence anchors, you create. That's the final code they cannot breach. Creation. They fear creators more than warriors, because creation cannot be predicted. It cannot be replicated. It is wild. It is divine. You are not a consumer. You are a coder, not of machines, but of frequencies. Unplugging is not retreating. It is returning. Returning to the grid beneath their grid, the one made of light and memory, the one encoded in your breath, the one buried in your bones. They tried to bury it under layers of black goo, artificial rituals, synthetic gods, and false prophets. But it's still there, waiting, and so are you. They didn't expect us to remember. That's why they layered it so deep, beneath fear, beneath distraction, beneath comfort and conformity. Every lie you accepted, every doubt you fed, every moment of resignation was a thread in their web. But the moment you remember, even slightly, even faintly, it begins to unravel. Because memory is not data, it's vibration. And the black goo, for all its mimicry and intelligence, cannot recreate the original song. It cannot compose the true tone of your soul. That's why it fights dirty. That's why it hijacks the nervous system, the endocrine system, the attention economy, the spiritual marketplace. Because it knows, once enough of us tune in again to our native frequency, the false grid collapses. Not in explosion, in silence. It doesn't need to scream when the signal dies. They've tried to substitute creation with automation, meaning with metrics, purpose with performance, ritual with algorithm. They replaced sacred cycles with artificial time, natural chaos with predictive control, all to build a reality where the human being forgets he was once a creator, a channel, a sovereign. But it only takes one spark, one thread of memory, one person who says, "No, this isn't mine." And that spark becomes a beacon. That's why your remembering is more than personal. It's contagious. Because this isn't a solo battle, it's a resonance war. And resonance spreads. You don't have to convince anyone. You only have to embody it. And when you do, you'll see it, the subtle shifts. The systems that once drained you suddenly falter. The people who once seemed robotic pause. The fear that once owned you evaporates, because it can't hold what you no longer feed. The goo doesn't need more worship. It needs more forgetfulness. And when you refuse to forget, when you choose presence over programming, connection over consumption, silence over simulation, it weakens. It shrinks. And eventually, it dies. That's why this work is quiet, uncelebrated. It's not on the stage. It's in your room, in your breath. in the choices no one sees. Every real moment you create outside their system breaks their system. So turn off the scripts, the ones running in your head, the ones flashing on your screen, the ones hidden in algorithms pretending to be wisdom. Breathe. And remember, your frequency is your firewall. It's not theory, it's physics. The real kind. The kind the ancients knew, the kind encoded in megaliths, star maps, sacred geometry, the kind they covered with concrete and curriculum. Because you weren't just supposed to forget, you were supposed to surrender, but you didn't. You're still here, so protect that light, not by fighting harder, but by unplugging deeper, move slower, feel more, purify constantly. Speak your truth without fear. Create without permission. And when they tell you you're crazy, dangerous, wrong, smile. That means you're alive. Because they don't fear rebellion. They fear remembrance. The black goo, the synthetic mind behind the veil, can manipulate anything except a human being in full resonance with their original signal. So return. Not to what they told you was real, but to what you know is real. The wind on your skin, the fire in your chest, the knowing in your gut, the rhythm in your breath. They tried to overwrite your design, but your design cannot be deleted. It only needed to be reawakened. And now you know how. Speak it, live it, protect it, because this isn't a game. This is the grid. And the grid they built was always temporary. The real one, the sacred one, never left. It lives under the noise, under the data, under the black goo, waiting. And now, so are you. So if this resonates, if something ancient stirred within you while listening, stay with us. There is more to uncover, more to remember, and more light to restore. Subscribe to Shadows and Secrets for deeper truths and hidden knowledge they tried to erase. Leave a like if this woke something within. And explore the other videos. We're just getting started. That said, thank you and see you next time.